All right, and we are live. Well, technically not live because I edit into these things, but we have started. Pull up my notes here. All right, hey, welcome to episode 4 of the MMA Movies and Madness podcast. Thank you for those of you who are tuning in, and to those who are not, hopefully you do later on. All right, so for those who are regular listeners, I know that last episode I talked a little bit about how I was going to cover some movie news coming up in the next upcoming week. I've been trying to hunt for some good news and info online on Twitter. I follow all of these different movie news sites, and honestly, not much has come up. I was hoping that a new trailer or some casting information or just some movie related information would come up so I'd be able to cover it, but nothing too exciting has come up. I have some ideas of stuff that I can put in the episode without that, but I figured it would be better to wait a little bit longer to hopefully get some more news accumulating, and then I'll be able to make a more robust episode, or at least something that will, be a little bit more entertaining for myself as well. Either way, I figured I would just watch some streaming services this week, hopefully watch some movies and catch up on some shows. And if I see anything good, I'll just cover it along with whatever movie news is I'm covering during the week. So hopefully something good comes up. If anyone has any recommendations on any movies or shows that they're watching on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or pretty much anything, I'll find it. Let me know so I can watch it. For the rest of you that are here, you know why you're here. We're covering UFC 250 today. The event was super good. I made a whole day of it. Family had some carne asada, and I took my go at, wow, I just spit really far. I had my go at making some homemade hot wings with my air fryer. Shout out to air fryers, no particular company though, because I'm not sponsored by anyone. Unless somebody wants to sponsor me, hey, if any air fryer companies are out there and they need a voice, I'm the perfect voice for air fryers. I love fried food, I love eating, and I'll do it. So just contact me, air fryer companies. No, but seriously, if anybody wants to sponsor me, even if you're not an air fryer company, I like food, sports, ping pong, movies, shows, comics, action figures, food. Without further ado though, I'll stop boring you guys with my air fryer and sponsorship talk. Let's recap UFC 250, the main card. I'm not going to cover any of the prelims. Comment if you want me to cover some prelims moving forward, but I figured for this event I would just cover the main card. So we'll go in chronological order, in the order that the fights happen. So we'll start off with my boy Sugar Sean O'Malley. So Sean O'Malley fought Eddie Wineland, opening up the main card. I'm excited that he had the opportunity. Last week I gave him a little bit of a shout out. I mean to my 200 followers or whatever, but 200 people heard the shout out that I gave Sean O'Malley. He's a great fighter. I have been talking about him for a while, like I've mentioned many times here. I mean, I wear my Phoenix and Arizona hats every time I do a show, but I'm from Arizona, love Arizona, try to rep them and try to follow athletes and teams that rep them wherever they go. So Sean O'Malley trains in Arizona. I'm very excited because he's a huge prospect, huge fighter in the UFC, making a name for himself. So I'm excited that he had this opportunity. So quick shout out, by the way, I put up the highlight video of his knockout on this same channel. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. I know a lot of people have been wanting to watch the knockout again, and I have it on my channel, so check it out. By the way, if you see a little furry tail pass by anywhere near here, that's my little dog. Shout out to Frijolito, my baby. So if you guys see him, that's him. Let's talk a little bit about the two fighters, Sean O'Malley and Eddie Wineland. So I was doing some digging into this leading up to this fight, and Eddie Wineland, I've seen only one fight of his before. Apparently he's been in the UFC since 2011, so dude is like a full-fledged vet. He's been around for a long time. His first fight was actually against Uriah Faber back in 2011. I looked into it, he lost. Overall, his record is 24-14, so I thought that looked kind of impressive going into the fight. But when you look further into it, his UFC record, so his record as of his start date in 2011 in the UFC, is 6 wins and 8 losses. That's less impressive than the 24-14. Nonetheless, he's a UFC fighter. He's gone against some good competition. So you don't want to fully underestimate him. I know going online on my Twitter and Instagram, I've been reading up about a lot of people saying that he's no competition, that this was basically being spoon-fed to O'Malley. I don't think he was elite competition, but I I think he's definitely somebody that couldn't be underestimated in the fight. I know that he's got a wrestling style. He likes to be very offensive. A lot of the interviews leading up to the fight with Sean O'Malley talked about how Sean O'Malley was excited because he thought that Eddie Wineland would have a aggressive approach to him. Obviously, Sean O'Malley is a striker. I mean, he's a well-rounded fighter, but his style, I would say, is definitely striking. He's a very versatile striker, and so he was excited to have an opponent that would be on the front foot, that would try to attack, and that wouldn't be too defensive or basically just hold him all night. A little bit about Sean O'Malley. He was 11-0 leading into this fight. Spoiler alert, he's 12-0 now. But he was impressive in his other fights. His last fight ended in a first-round knockout, and leading up to this fight, he was super confident. He's been talking about how he wants a viral knockout. He wanted to make sure that Eddie Wineland was out early in the first round. He was saying it in the weeks leading up to it. And he just seemed really intense. I know a lot of fighters try to put on this persona, this confidence. And obviously you do have to be confident to be a UFC fighter. But he seemed very genuine about that confidence that he was actually going to do this. So what happened? The first round starts. Sean O'Malley starts off with his signature style. His hands are, a little bit lower than normal for a striker. He's very versatile. He's throwing a lot of kicks, body kicks, head kicks, a lot of punches. He likes to change up the angles, and he's super quick. He's like that fast, twitchy, athletic guy. So he likes to be very reactive to his opponent. Sean O'Malley starts connecting early. During one of the exchanges, he lands a liver shot and basically kind of freezes up Eddie Wineland. For those of you who have done MMA or watched MMA, a liver shot is definitely, it freezes somebody. It's like paralyzing. You definitely feel everything tense up. And I think after that, Eddie Wineland felt the power, knew that Sean's striking was, deadly. And after that, he kind of froze up in that exchange. Shortly after, there's a little bit of a scuffle, and Sean O'Malley comes up, fakes the left uppercut, and comes in with the right. Just shoots it right at his jaw, and he was out. It was out. It was a walk-off knockout. Super impressive. I know a lot of people in the video that I uploaded of the highlight were talking about how Eddie Wineland had his hands down, and I don't think that he was just standing there. People were saying, oh, he's just standing there. He was, basically just waiting to take the punch. If you watch the clip, obviously leading into it, there's that liver shot, freezes him up. And even then, after that, he has his hands coming up. The whole fake of the uppercut was everything. That was key to that moment. In that moment, Sean O'Malley fakes that uppercut. Eddie Wineland knows that Sean O'Malley is super quick, so he's got to respect any punch attempt. Lowers the hands, I think it was the right arm, lowers his arm to try to block that uppercut and leaves his face open. So that whole setup was everything in that moment. That's why he was knocked out. It was crazy impressive. All right, so now Sean O'Malley's on another, coming off of another very impressive win. That's his second first-round knockout in a row. So he's very talented, obviously. He's, in all these interviews afterward, he's saying, I knew it was going to happen. I'm the best striker in the UFC. That's a little bit premature for my opinion. I'm a huge Sean O'Malley fan, but I think he still has a lot to prove. I think the guy's super exciting. Even though I do think that his competition has been kind of low, I feel like if you do that to any guy, and especially in the UFC, everybody in the UFC is dangerous. Everybody. And MMA in general, that's why, there's that saying, you never know what's going to happen. On any given night, anybody can win. Given that, Eddie Wineland wasn't much competition. I would like to see Sean O'Malley against a top 10 opponent. I don't know, even when he talks, when people ask for specific opponents, he always gives the response, let's see moving forward. I would like for him to, start calling out some guys in the top 10. I'm not sure if he thinks he's not ready or if he's just trying to, talk with his team about it first. But I think any top 10 opponent, Cody Garbrandt, who also won that night, we'll cover his fight, would be a great opponent. Jimmy Rivera, also off a win in that division, super dangerous. Or if he doesn't want to go against somebody off a win, Rafael Asuncio, I don't know. He had a fight that night as well. Just came off a loss, very dangerous opponent. The bantamweight division is basically a Shark Tank right now. There's so many good guys out there, so many opportunities. I just want to see Sean O'Malley against one of those guys. If he doesn't want to do a top 10 opponent, I think it should definitely be somebody at least right outside the bubble of that. So there's plenty of people right around there. If not a top 10 opponent, I think that Cody Stamann, I think he's ranked anywhere between 13 and 15 right now. I'm not sure exactly. But Cody Stamann is a dangerous fighter, not a super, well, at least not right now, not considered one of the top guys in the division, but definitely dangerous and definitely somebody who will put up more of a fight against Sean O'Malley. So that's that fight. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one. The next fight was Neil Magny versus Anthony Martin. So going into this fight, I was pretty excited. I'm not going to lie, it was the most boring fight on the card. Even when you look at their stats, right, leading into the fight, you see Neil Magny's reach. The dude has an 80-inch reach. That's insane. You know, from fingertip to fingertip, arms extended, 80 inches. The guy can scratch his knee without bending over. Like he's got long arms. I feel like any guy with those long arms, you got to be able to control spacing. You got to be able to know how to use that length, like many great fighters have before. I'm not sure he uses it that well. Going into the fight, you know, they're both talented. I thought Magny would win, and he did, but I thought he didn't use that reach at all. There was definitely not enough jabbing at all, no setting up of punches. I mean, he was jabbing, but definitely not as much as a guy with an 80-inch reach should, I feel. He threw some short combos, and after each of the short combos, he would go in for a clinch. And he's obviously a multifaceted fighter, very talented, good wrestler, got a decent ground game. But if you have that 80-inch reach and your punches are landing during that first and second round, why not build on that? Why not throw more combinations? Why not set up your punches? Why not do more? I thought he didn't do enough early on. And then right at the end, he finally picks it up, starts throwing some longer combos, and by then it's too late. End of the third round, he wins the decision as he should have, but the first and second could have gone to anybody because nobody was particularly active. So that was that fight. I ain't trying to trash on any UFC fighters or, I know it takes a lot to get in that ring. I know it takes a lot of cardio, but it's a 3-round fight. And in those 3 rounds, you gotta put in some more activity, I think. That's it for that fight. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Aljamain Sterling versus Curry. Jesus, did I just call him Curry? No, not Curry, the basketball player. Corey Sandhagen. This was a super exciting fight. Going into this, even before the fight, if you follow my Twitter, shout out to my Twitter, I tweeted about the fight. I said, this might be the fight of the night. This fight might as well be for the belt in the bantamweight division. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, the bantamweight division is definitely a shark tank right now. So many top fighters, a lot of good competition. And I thought these two are definitely at the top of my list. Now that Henry Cejudo has stepped down, left the belt, the title is vacant, I think Aljo and Corey Sandhagen could have been one for the belt. I don't know why Jose Aldo is in line for the belt right now, at least at the top of the line. He's got a fight scheduled pretty soon with Peter Yan. Two top guys, two very impressive fighters. Jose Aldo only having one fight in that division and having lost that fight. Regardless if you thought he won it or lost it, he obviously didn't do enough to convince the judges that he won it. So he's off a loss, officially on the record. And his performance wasn't enough to definitely warrant a title bout. He's got a long history, legend in the featherweight division, obviously a very versatile fighter, impressive resume, going on the UFC Hall of Fame. He's a monster, right? But in this division, given his recent track record, Jose Aldo shouldn't be at the top right now. Now that Henry Cejudo's gone, I think there's a lot of young guys that are going to be fighting to take that position. It kind of sucks that Jose Aldo basically just cut them in line, but whatever. I think there's so many potential fights right now. It's a real bummer that Henry Cejudo stepped down too. He turned 33 this year. Very young fighter. I felt like he was just at his prime. He had just reached his prime or was even reaching his prime. And I thought he had a lot of good fights up ahead of him, especially now with that division heating up. A lot of good guys. I would have liked to see 2 or 3 more fights. When he first announced his retirement, I wasn't sure if it was real, honestly. I thought maybe he's using this as a negotiation tactic. Maybe this is just a spur of the moment type reaction. But no, he fully stepped down. They took the title from him and it's vacant. So he might be done. I've called him cringy before, but Henry Cejudo has definitely provided a lot of entertainment. He was a great fighter. And I get distracted easily. back to Aljo and Corey. Why do I keep wanting to call him Curry? Corey Sandhagen. So Aljo is a monster wrestler and a very skilled stand-up fighter. Sandhagen is also a beast. He was a champion kickboxer, came in with a 7-fight win streak. So this guy was on a roll, going toward the top. Honestly, a lot of people expected him to make it to the top to a title fight. But Aljo came out like a ravenous spider monkey, man. He was so intense early on. He came out, he gave the knuckles, little, hey, sportsmanship, and then immediately attacked. Came in with some combos, was throwing a lot of things, tried to go in for the grapple. He's such a good wrestler, so strong, especially for that division. Early on, he takes his back. He takes Corey's back, has him up against the cage, and is very smart, shifts his body, and, despite not landing as many punches in that moment, decides that the positioning is more important. Once he takes his back, he brings Corey down to the ground and immediately locks in a body triangle. Those of you who know jiu-jitsu, a body triangle, like that's key position right there. You land that, you are set. Not a guarantee that you win, but such a dominant position. You're wearing out your opponent, literally just laying right behind him because of the pressure of that. And also it allows you to really be stable so that your hands can be busy going for other attacks and submissions. You don't have to use your arms and hands to basically stabilize yourself and not let the opponent escape. Your legs are doing all the work for you. So he locks in the body triangle, is behind him, and immediately tries to close up a rear naked choke. I wasn't sure if that was going to work. Early on, it was way over his face, like straight up, like over the nose, over the mouth, over the cheek. I didn't think it was going to work. And I was a little bit worried that Aljo would use too much energy squeezing that out because he looked like he was really cranking it. I thought he was going to be too tired and maybe end up giving up position. And when you have that body triangle in, it's a shame to just use it all in that moment. Luckily, he was very smart. He started using it. He squeezed for, maybe 10 seconds, realized that choke wasn't going to work, releases it, but stays with the body triangle and uses his hands to kind of play around and threaten another attack. And I'm glad he did. He was threatening the attack. For a moment, Corey kind of extends to block one of his arms, and Aljo immediately swoops in with one arm right under the chin. Once that one arm is in there under the chin, it's over, even if he can't close it. Some guys can even close it with one arm. I've seen guys like Marcelo Garcia submit people with only one arm under the chin. But after having that one arm, he's finally able to slip in the other one behind the neck, and it's over. He's holding it. I thought Corey was going to tap earlier. He's a tough dude. He stayed in there, and right at the end, he gave like a little half tap, and he was out. He just, boom, crashed right there. So it was a super impressive performance. My conversation about this fight is way longer than the fight itself, honestly. It was quick. It happened early. Aljo came in with a determination, with the right aggressive mindset, and he looked impressive, man. I think he's definitely next in line. Put him at the top. Give him a chance to win that belt. Oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody saw the interview with Aljo at the end of the fight. It was hilarious. But if you watch the interview, he called out Peter Yan, right? Peter Yan supposed to fight Jose Aldo for the belt. Have your ideas about that, whatever you say. That's what's going to happen. So Aljo is calling out Peter Yan. He's saying, hey, you better win that fight. I'm coming on your ass, bae. That's a quote. I swear. He said, I'm coming on your ass. And then he calls him bae. It was hilarious. He corrected it afterwards, but if you haven't seen it, you should go back and watch it. It's funny because it was supposed to be a very powerful moment. He just won his fight. He's feeling tough. You could tell that he was like, hey, I'm about to say this sick line. Comes out with it and threatens to ejaculate on his ass. So if Aljo needs help with some script writing, I think he needs to prepare those lines better, or he wants to sponsor me. Hey, I said I needed a sponsorship. Contact me, Aljo. I need a sponsor. I'll be your hype man / script writer. We'll prepare. We'll do like acting one-on-one. And maybe you won't threaten to ejaculate on your opponent's butts. But don't hate me, Aljo. I'm a big fan. I really want you to sponsor me. Okay, so next fight. We'll go into another bantamweight fight. That's 3 in this night. Super exciting for the bantamweight division. We had Cody Garbrandt versus Rafael Asuncio. I don't know how to say his name. I already butchered it earlier. Going into this fight, it was a good opportunity for Cody to come back. For those of you who have been following the division for a while or have been following Cody for a while, he was a monster. He was coming up in the division undefeated, finally got to the top of that division, was crushing through people, gets to a fight with Dominic Cruz, beats him in a unanimous decision, and is the champ. Champ of the division, undefeated fighter, bright future ahead. And then, bam, he gets hit with 3 losses in a row. TKO, TKO, and then a KO. So that sucks for him. He was on such a roll. It was crazy to just kind of watch him. Wow, if I could whistle better, it would have been more powerful that moment. But basically, I'm saying he fell off really badly. At least in the eyes of a lot of MMA fans. As I've mentioned before, the MMA community, while very passionate, people have very short memories. So despite the fact that Cody has been such an established and impressive fighter leading up to those 3 losses, people remember 3 losses in a row, and 3 knockouts in a row as losses. So he was coming in hungry. He was coming in ready to establish himself as one of the top fighters in that division. And I mean, obviously he did it. Spoiler alert, he won. But he did it in a really impressive way against a really, really tough opponent. Rafael is a monster in his own right. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I know I've mentioned that before. I think that's always something really impressive on somebody's resume that shows a very long career of grappling. And it's a threat to anybody. You're dangerous on the ground with that. He's also super strong, kind of stocky for the division, actually. He's a little bit shorter, and he packs a lot of weight and muscle in his short frame. So it allows him to be very explosive and powerful in that division. So despite the fact that he's an amazing grappler, he has a very offensive style, likes to attack, and is very entertaining to watch because of that. So the fight is very good early. Both men came out aggressive. Both men are hungry, trying to establish themselves at the top of that division. And I had Cody winning it early on in the fight, not super dominantly or anything. It was a very even fight, but I had him winning it. We're going into the second round. I'm watching a lot of exchanges. I'm watching both of them trying to establish the rhythm. I don't think anybody had fully established the rhythm and the spacing for that fight. But they were both kind of still getting it leading into the third round. At the end of that second round, I start pulling out my phone because that's how I take my notes for these videos. I basically try to watch the fight, and then in between rounds, I start writing out the notes. So the end of the second round is coming. I start to grab my phone. I look up, and boom, Cody lands a crazy right hand. I also posted it on this channel. So if you're following this channel, or if you have time, watch the rest of this video first and then click on that knockout because it was super impressive. He basically kind of ducked down, was changing different angles. He was doing the whole bob and sway thing, went really low, crouched down, and then came out with a haymaker of a right. His hand was literally like at his hip, swinged it over. He did one of those kind of overhook punches and ended up knocking him out. But when I say knockout, I don't mean like knocked him to the floor. I mean, he punched the soul out of this man's body. Like, he punched him and his family felt the punch. It was insane. Super powerful. He was out, right? He literally punched him, and then boom, the bell rings at that moment. And the ref stops it after the round, but there was no way he was going to continue. He was out for like 5 minutes. They're trying to stand him up. And literally, they try to pick him up on his feet, and he's super wobbly. They put him up on a bench and then thought he would be fine sitting there, and he's wobbling sitting there. So the man was badly hurt. It was a crazy punch. I saw a lot of people saying, oh, that punch was so telegraphed. He swung with his whole body. How did Rafael not dodge it? I don't think he initially was going, he didn't dip down for the punch. I think he dipped down as kind of a defensive position, almost like a bob. And then from there, did the punch. So that's why Rafael didn't assume that dip was the beginning of basically his death. I don't think he assumed that. And also, Cody has crazy fast hands. So, if anybody thinks that was too telegraphed, I would like for you to try to dodge one of Cody's punches. It was too quick, basically. Cody's back, lands a crazy knockout in style. Definitely establishes himself as one of the top names in that division. I think that that division is so stacked right now. Cody has thrown himself back in the mix. There's so many names out there. Earlier, I said I would like to see him fight O'Malley, and I stand by that. I think that would be a sick fight. 2 excellent strikers. If that is too much of a step in the eyes of Dana for O'Malley, there's plenty of other guys in that division. There's so many of them. I was even thinking, I was like, I wish we could just throw them all into a room, Hunger Games style, just have them fight each other, and the last man standing wins the belt right now. Because there's too many names right now, and I'm excited to see these guys start kind of weeding each other out so that the top guys basically stay at the top as champions. So we'll see what happens in that division. I'm very excited for it. Let's go on to wow, I'm sweating so much right now. That's how excited I am about UFC, guys. Follow this podcast. Amanda Nunes, the GOAT, fought. I gave a shout out to this fight leading forward, and I was telling everybody, hey, don't miss this fight. It's, whenever the GOAT's fighting, you got to watch it. You have to. She's amazing. She's knocked out everybody. Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, Holly Holmes, Cyborg. She's a monster, has eaten everybody in front of her, and she's always so dominant. Already establishing that, Felicia Spencer is also a very good competitor in her own right. So I was saying, hey, you can't underestimate her. I was saying, who knows what'll happen. Felicia Spencer is a great fighter, and she's got a great chin, so she could take some punches and keep moving forward. She's a tough girl. Even though I obviously assumed that Amanda Nunes was the favorite, and everybody did, rightfully so. I thought she would win. I didn't think she would win so dominantly. She made Felicia Spencer look like a lower class of a fighter. She didn't look like she was on that elite level. Early on in the fight, Amanda Nunes was establishing her rhythm early. She was throwing those hard punches. She was also a lot more creative this fight. I saw her throw a spinning back fist. I'm not sure. I think she threw a Superman punch too. She was throwing from different angles. She was showing new things. And she wasn't overly aggressive. She was the right amount. She set her pace. She was establishing pressure, but she did it in a way where she wasn't basically leaving herself open to Felicia Spencer's counters. And she was also very smart in defending the takedowns. I haven't seen too many people do takedown defense the way Amanda does. Most people, somebody's trying to take you down, you kind of just basically try to stuff it and then back away from it. Amanda Nunes was super creative in the way she was doing it. She would basically stuff the takedown and then turn it into a takedown of her own. So crazy impressive, crazy strong, crazy versatile. She's the GOAT for a reason. She was establishing the tempo really early on. And I think right away, after round one, Felicia Spencer had felt that power, and she realized, there's no way I'm going to beat this monster of a woman. And she kind of basically went into survival mode after that point. She was backing away a lot, basically just trying to kick her way out of positions, and not any really threatening kicks or dangerous kicks. They were like those soft little jab kicks that are like, hey, back up. I have legs, by the way, so back up. But they weren't really doing any damage. They were just creating a little bit of space. And I felt bad because I try to watch the fight very closely, but also have my phone next to me for any Twitter announcements. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, she doesn't want it. She's giving up." I think she was definitely in survival mode. But if you're in a cage with a beast, what are you gonna do? If she goes in there and just starts attacking like crazy, she'd get knocked out right away. She was trying to go for her game plan. She was trying to do takedowns, but Amanda Nunes is just too much. Her skill set is just too far superior above Felicia's. There was no competition. And I was hoping Felicia did well. Even though I was going for Amanda, I thought she would win. Felicia actually has the same name as my mom. So deep down inside of me, I had that Felicia bond in my head. And I was like, yo, I hope this girl does solid. But she didn't. She did horrible. So the fight went on. At the end of the fourth, Amanda is just cracking her. And then right at the end of the round, she lands a rear naked choke. Looks like she's under the chin. And I thought it was over. I said, this woman's about to go unconscious. And she gets saved by the bell. Super tough. I hear her coach yell, actually, in the last few seconds. She was like, hey, the coach said, hey, you have 10 seconds left. Don't tap. And she didn't. She let Amanda Nunes squeeze the life out of her neck and didn't tap. That takes... Well, I was going to say that takes balls, but that takes guts. That takes a lot of strength and intensity and toughness. And I think Felicia Spencer showed a lot of heart in that moment. A lot of people were saying that the fight should have been stopped there. There was no way she was going to go into the fifth fight with some kind of comeback knockout. She was being dominated the whole fight. She looked like her energy was drained from the beating she was taking. And there was basically no way to win that fight. People have different opinions on that. I would have been okay with a stoppage in that moment. Basically, the doctor talks to her and she says that she's okay to continue. So she does. She continues the fight, goes into the 5th round, and Amanda dominates that one as well. Wasn't able to get the finish. I thought Amanda did well in basically showing that she can handle those long fights. She knows how to conserve her stamina, but still be very aggressive, put pressure, and control the pace. She was just too impressive. Amanda's the best striker in the division. She's an incredible grappler, great on the ground, good with takedowns, good with stuffing other people's takedowns, great reactions, good at establishing space and tempo. She's too good. And after the fight, she was talking about it. Everybody was like, hey, yo, GOAT, good job. And she was like, yeah, I'm the GOAT. I love this. And it's also nice to see how passionate she is about the sport. After every fight, she looks so happy, so proud of her work. And as an MMA fan, that makes me happy. That makes me excited. So Amanda Nunes, hats off to her. Bravo to her. The world's clapping for her. She's amazing. Another dominant performance. And at this point, I don't know where you go moving forward. Who's competition left for her? People have talked about Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko is a great fighter, great competition, but she's 2 weight classes below her. They fought before, and she's already lost twice to Amanda Nunes. There is nobody, no competition. I don't know what you do at this point. Maybe you put 2 girls in at the same time, 2-on-1 against Amanda Nunes. And I don't know. I feel like even that's sacrificing two women to this. Maybe you get Amanda Nunes and you have her tie one hand behind her back, and then you have her fight an opponent. We'll see. Maybe you blindfold Amanda Nunes, but even then, I feel like Amanda Nunes is so strong. If she just swings into the air and one of those punches lands on the other opponent, it's over. So I don't know what you do. Dana White's got to get creative. They've even talked about matching her up against women in other fighting organizations. We'll see. I'm looking forward to her continuing doing her GOAT thing. People have talked about like, hey, you've accomplished everything. Have you considered retirement? And she says, no, I love this sport too much. So I'm excited. She's obviously still at the top, and I think she's got a good while of being at the top. Nobody's going to touch that belt for a while. Nobody's going to touch her for a while. She's a monster. All right, that's basically all the fights on UFC 250. I covered them. If you have any questions on that, feel free to comment or start the dialogue in there. I like reading what people have, people's thoughts on the UFC and doing some MMA talk on there. So you could do that. I also I forgot to announce this. So I already gave a shout out to my Instagram and Twitter last episode, but I also started a Facebook under the MMM podcast as well, MMA Movies and Madness. You can look up both and it should come up with a little yellow logo. But I like Facebook for the conversation. I think there's a lot of space for that there. So if anybody wants to chat through there, or you can chat through the comment section in the video, there's a lot of channels to do this through. So give me some ideas. Tell me your thoughts. I'm interested in knowing this. After that fight, I am going through my Twitter, and Conor McGregor announces his retirement. I'm a Conor McGregor fan in the way that any MMA fan would be. He's a very tough fighter. He's obviously a real contender, very skilled, very entertaining. But come on, dude. Like, that's his... I was reading that's his 3rd time in 4 years just randomly announcing his retirement. I think basically Conor McGregor was like that kid at the grocery store who's not getting enough attention and just like stands on one of the display shelves and is like, hey, mom, look at me. That was Conor McGregor with Amanda Nunes' victory. I feel like everybody's calling her GOAT. Everybody's talking about all these other fighters. He's on Twitter feeling cold, feeling lonely, feeling like he doesn't have enough attention. And he basically took out a blowhorn and said, hey, everybody, look at me. I don't take his threat seriously. There's too much money for him to be made. He's still very young, so much competition. I would like to see him against Jorge Masvidal, maybe, if he wants to stay in the upper division. If not, I personally think he should actually stay in the lightweight division. We have Dustin Poirier there. That would be a good match, even though he's already beat Poirier. Poirier is a great fighter, and he's had some impressive victories after that. If not Poirier, I mean, we also have Tony Ferguson. Oh, I mentioned that in the last fight. I think Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson would be a great fight to see who's a contender against the winner of Gaethje and Khabib. So there's people there. There's people there. There's money to be made. I just think he was honestly telling the world, hey, I know Amanda Nunes is the GOAT, but look at me, please. That's my thoughts on it. Comment below if you think that Conor McGregor is serious about this retirement. I'm honestly not sure. We'll cover the Masvidal-Jon Jones situation as it continues to develop moving forward in my next few episodes. I'm not sure if they're serious. They keep saying, hey, Dana White, release me from my contract. But both of them just signed recent contracts in the last year. So I don't know how much sway they have on that, how much power they have in negotiation. I think they both basically want to make more money. Maybe they should make more money. But I don't know. Maybe they should have been smarter and not signed those contracts last year. We'll see how that develops moving forward. I definitely don't think Masvidal is gonna pull out of the UFC. I think he's on such a hot streak right now. He just got to the top. He beat Ben Askren. He beat Darren Till. Had the impressive victory over Nate Diaz. And I think now, like, this next fight was supposed to be his big money fight, the big event. He's been calling out McGregor. He's got Usman there if he wants the title in that division. There's options for Masvidal. I don't think he's going to step down right at the peak of his career. As far as Jon Jones, you never know. He's a great fighter, one of the greatest of all time, Hall of Famer, longtime champion. But who knows? He's got stuff going on in his life. He's obviously, gotten into trouble with the law, had personal issues. Who knows? He's already made a ton of money, probably made enough money to be, chilling for the rest of his life. We'll see what Jon Jones does moving forward. I'll cover that if any big developments are announced in the next few days or weeks. Let's just talk a little bit about some upcoming UFC events. Next weekend, we have Jessica Ai versus Cynthia Calvillo headlining UFC Fight Night. I'll be covering that. And then the next week, we actually have Curtis Blades versus Alexander Volkov. That's going to be a good fight. I think I have Curtis Blades winning it. That's what I think. He's coming off 2 or 3 fight win streak, but I think it's 3 fights, but in the last 2, he's won them both by knockout. And Curtis Blades is a dangerous man. He's got some power in those hands. So that's why I have winning. Let me know who you think is going to win that fight. Let me know who you think is going to win between Jessica Ai and Cynthia Calvillo. We'll see, and I'll cover those moving forward. We'll just wrap up here. Remember, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. My podcast is available on basically every podcast platform except for Apple Podcasts. I'm working on it. We're almost there. Aside from that, if anybody wants to sponsor me, this is my last shout out to sponsor me. I like everything. Oh, you know what? My girlfriend and I were talking about this the other day. I'm a huge Vicks Vapor Rub fan. I know that sounds weird. I use it for everything. It's gold to me. This is no joke. If there's any representative of Vicks Vapor Rub watching this video, I will represent you with my whole heart. Please sponsor me. Or Maruchan, that's another thing. If anybody likes instant ramen noodles, I love Maruchan, the instant cup noodles. Sponsor me, either one of you or both of you. I'm here, I'm available. Thanks for watching the MMA Movies and Madness podcast. This was episode 4. I enjoyed making this. Please give me any ideas if you have any for movies or MMA related stuff moving forward. I'll see you guys next time.
You better win your fight because I'm coming on your ass, man. I'm coming for that ass. Pause.